I've watched it over and over and I still can't figure out what's so offensive. What's up, everybody? Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, please make sure you hit the like button, comment when I get on your nerves, and subscribe so you know the next time I'll be getting on your nerves. So I was looking at Twitter trending, and they were talking about Jared Kushner and how he had implied that the black community was lazy. And I still can't tell, even in watching the edited version. I'll play the edited version right here so you can see what Twitter was spreading around.
Thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And what you're seeing throughout the country now is a groundswell of support in the black community because they're realizing that all the different bad things that the media and the Democrats have said about President Trump are not true. And so they're seeing that he's actually delivered, he's put up results, and a lot of people want to get on board to start working with President Trump because they know that, unlike most politicians who have been in Washington for decades, who talk and say all the right things, President Trump may not always say the right things, but he does the right things. He says what's on his mind, and he gets results. And so people want results. They're tired of politicians who are promising things and not delivering.
Well, he does say what's on his mind. He's really good at that. Jared.
And now I'll play the full version for you guys.
There's been a lot of discussion about the issues that were needed in the black community for the last years, but particularly it intensified after the George Floyd situation. And you saw a lot of people who were just virtue signaling. They'd go on Instagram and cry, or they would put a slogan on their jersey or write something on a basketball court. And quite frankly, that was doing more to polarize the country than it was to bring people forward. You solve problems with solutions. And one of the things I respected about Ice Cube is he actually went and said, okay, what are the policies that are needed in order to solve the problems that everyone's complaining about? And he put forward his proposal. We were connected through some mutual friends, and we started some discussions. He came in to meet. We said, look, we've been working on our own plan to solve these problems. We got together. We're able to take him through all of President Trump's accomplishments, whether it was accomplishing criminal justice reform, opportunity zones, the funding he provided to HBCUs, and then we took him through a lot of the different plans that we had for what President Trump could do in the next 4 years. And I'm a big believer in iron sharpens iron. It was a really in-depth and respectful policy discussion. There were some things we didn't agree on, but there were a lot of things we did agree on. I think he helped make our plan better, and we appreciated it. And again, one thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And what you're seeing throughout the country now is a groundswell of support in the black community because they're realizing that all the different bad things that the media and the Democrats have said about President Trump are not true. And so they're seeing that he's actually delivered, he's put up results, and a lot of people want to get on board to start working with President Trump because they know that, unlike most politicians who have been in Washington for decades, who talk and say all the right things, President Trump may not always say the right things, but he does the right things. He says what's on his mind, and he gets results. And so people want results. They're tired of politicians who are promising things and not delivering.
Okay, I don't know what about that is supposed to be so offensive. I know that when you take the context out, then it does make it seem like he's making a different statement than he's making. And that's one thing I'm tired of with the media, because since I've been editing my own videos, and I've really noticed this lately, I knew it from the beginning because of my podcast and editing that, I can make it sound like anybody's saying anything I want them to say. I can use their exact words. I've thought about it before when I was going to do it one time to be like clickbaity, but I was going to do it with a friend of mine. And I didn't want her to catch heat because people thought she was saying something other than what she was saying. So I didn't do it. But the media is doing that all the time. And it's really starting to bother me because you're changing the conversation and making it into something that it doesn't have to be, and making people fight with each other when they don't necessarily have to. I agree with what Jared Kushner said in the part where he was saying that you have to come up with solutions. You can't just be all about problems. And Twitter responded by being exactly what he was talking about, and everybody just gets mad and offended. And it's like, you being mad and offended doesn't do anything. You having a bunch of people respond to you in ways that are basically echoing exactly what it is you're saying is not helping, is not pushing the conversation forward. Does Jared Kushner have a little bit of a blind spot? Probably. He's rich. He's married to Ivanka Trump. He's been rich his whole life or comes from a privileged family. I think sometimes people get confused when you mention white privilege. Sometimes white people get very offended by that because they think that that means that they haven't done anything to deserve their status or where they are in life. And that's not what white privilege is. It's sometimes just being relatable to other white people and getting opportunities because of that. So I think when people bring that up, it's completely valid, especially where Jared Kushner is concerned. But that's always going to be. So if you want people to get a better understanding of what you are, instead of just saying you're offended and thinking that that's enough, why don't you tell people why it is you're offended and what in particular bothers you? I know a lot of people aren't really capable of that, but that's because most people, and I hate to say it, and this goes across all races, are dumb. Most people really can't say what's the matter with them because they don't really know. They just know, oh, he's offended, then I should be offended. She's offended, okay, then I should really be offended. There's all these people that are offended, I should be offended too. And so you ask them a question, and they don't treat it like you're asking them a question to genuinely understand. Instead, they get defensive because they don't really know what they're going to say next because they don't come from a genuine place when it comes to that. I'm not saying these people aren't genuine. I truly believe they think they're genuine. I truly believe they think they have a problem. But I don't truly believe that they know how to articulate that or really what the underlying is on what it is they're offended about. Now, if you wanted to say that Jared Kushner doesn't understand certain things and that maybe he needs a little bit of guidance, direction, just to be informed on certain aspects of your particular life or where you come from or where the people that you're surrounded by are coming at it from, then that's something I think is productive. That's something I think would be helpful to the conversation. But just the I hate Donald Trump, so I hate everything around him, to me is not productive at all. People got mad at Ice Cube. I talked about it a couple weeks ago, and that's what people are still talking about. That's what Jared Kushner was referencing, and he was saying that Ice Cube came in with actual solutions, actual ideas. Some things they agreed on, some things they didn't. Well, that's the way it works when you're negotiating. Some things you're going to agree on, and some things you're not, and you find common ground if you're both willing to do that and end up in a better spot, and that's what you have to do. So when that was all going on with Ice Cube and that was really at its peak, I was getting annoyed with watching people just down talk Ice Cube and talk about how stupid he was and call him names and basically say he was an Uncle Tom, when it's like, you're not doing anything. You're just sitting on Twitter complaining about Ice Cube when Ice Cube has actually met with people, advisors that are smarter than he is, and that's not an insult at all. We all have people that are smarter than we are. We all have people that are better at certain things than we are or can articulate things better for us or put them in the kind of language that they have to be in so that somebody like the higher ups at the Trump administration or Jared Kushner and who he's dealing with are going to understand it better, or it's more in the language that they speak. So when I see people that are doing nothing but complaining on Twitter talking about how terrible Ice Cube is, it's really just comes down to, what are you doing? Like, okay, you don't like Ice Cube's plan, so what's your plan? Lay it out for me. Like, not just I'm offended, not just he shouldn't be talking to Donald Trump, because that's our president right now. And there's a chance that he's going to get a second term. If he does get a second term, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit home and complain? Are you just going to be upset that Joe Biden didn't get elected? How about instead you have a plan and cover your bets like what Ice Cube is doing? Ice Cube's just saying, either way it goes, that's who I'm going to have to work with. I'm either going to have to work with Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So whoever I got to talk to get what I need done, that's who I'm going to talk to. That's who I'm going to deal with. I'm not going to get caught up on what everybody else is caught up on, what your guys are mad about, because that doesn't move me forward. That doesn't get me where I have to be. And I don't know why people think that this is at all a good strategy. I have so many friends that I've met throughout the years, and some people that I work for at different points that don't 100% get me. And how could I expect them to get me? We come from different places. We're also different as far as ethnicity goes. I'm also gay. Most of them are straight. But that doesn't mean they're not good people. That doesn't mean they completely can't get me. It just means that their starting point is a little bit different, and I have to do a little more explaining or let them just see me and begin to understand how it is things work for me. And then from there, the understanding grows. I had that argument with one of my friends one day that actually I've worked for several times. He has several brothers. They own a couple of bars that I've performed at. They're in a smaller town. They have, I would say they have a lot of money. I think that's fair to say. I don't think they would mind me saying that. It's just what it is. They do have a lot of money. They're white men. They're good looking. They have a lot going for them. And so they don't necessarily understand what people of color are going through. So one day we got in a little bit of an argument because I had mentioned something about white privilege on my Facebook, which isn't something I'm always talking about if you know anything about me. And it's not something that I attribute everything to. But sometimes I will mention it just because sometimes when you're living in this country, it does actually come into play. So I mentioned it. One of them that I'm technically the closest with got a little bit upset. And at first I wanted to be upset with him, but instead I felt like, you know what? This guy has always treated me so well, and his entire family has always treated me really well. They always take really good care of me when I'm performing in their bars. They pay me well. We hang out. We've had dinner together. We've really been friends. And so why am I going to be mad at them for not understanding this particular concept and just not put a pin in it and be like, okay, maybe one day we can talk about that in real life, and then I can express it in a way that you'll actually get it. Then they grow. Then I get to hear them, and I grow from hearing their point of view, because who knows, maybe they're going to come at it in a way that I never would have expected, and then I could learn something too. It's not like just because I'm brown and gay, that means that I know everything and I always have to be right. I can have conversations where I can really take something in and be like, okay, yeah, that does paint it a different way for me, or maybe now I get why you get a little sensitive when people bring up white privilege. Sometimes it's just the fact that you fit too closely, and that could be completely true too. But how about instead of burning this friendship that I do value, how about I go ahead and maybe be a little bit patient the same way I would want them to be patient with me, and just say, okay, well then we'll talk about that another time, and let's see where we're at when we talk about it in person. And you know, you have a million people on social media cheering a person like me on, yeah, Ty, get him, get him, get him. But let's talk in facts. Does your cheering on help me pay my rent? Because these people have actually helped me pay my rent before. Like I said, they pay me well when I go out there to do their spots, and I can set them up almost anytime I want to. So does that really help me to burn the friendship, not only on the friendship level, but also on the business level? Is that a smart thing for me to do? And is it really that important that I'm basically going to cut off my nose to spite my face, which is what it is for me? And I've been having to do this my entire life, so I guess maybe that's where it's a little bit different for me. But I've found, and I'm not trying to act like I'm the most successful person in the world, but I have found that if I'm smart in the way that I navigate things, I can usually get what it is I want and get people to understand where it is I'm coming from. And so it's not like I particularly have to compromise my morals or my values or be devalued. Like, that's not what usually comes out of it. Usually I end up in really good situations with people because we get a really good understanding of each other. And so moving forward, we're always better off. That's the way I've always felt about it. And I've been accused of everything Ice Cube is getting accused of: tap dancing, being an Uncle Tom for the gay community. Like, these are all things that I've heard throughout my career. But it's like, if you've ever hung out with me, if you've ever been around me, you would know that everybody around me treats me with respect. It's not like I get treated like some sort of lapdog and everybody just mistreats me all the time or on me. That's not the way it works. People are very nice to me. People are very respectful with me. So I don't know why it is people that always want to be on the outside are upset with people that are smart enough to work their way in. Like, I personally feel like regardless of what your race is, even if you're the same as me, if you don't know how to deal with people and you don't know how to get to where you want to be, maybe that's something you need to work on. And maybe that's what bothered some people about what Jared Kushner was saying, is sometimes you have to look at yourself. Sometimes you have to look at your own community and say, are we being unnecessarily difficult? Is there a way that we could make things easier for ourselves by maybe working with whatever the powers that be are? That's something you always have to think about. How about a little bit of accountability? Like, you can't be the entire world against you. And I understand systemic racism and all, like, everything they bring up, I understand, and that is valid to a point. But also, at some point in time, you have to look at things and say, okay, am I going to let this hold me back, or am I going to move forward no matter what the people around me say or think that I should do instead? That's the way I see a lot of these things. Like when it comes to me, and, I've talked about the racism that comes from both sides, technically the liberal more when it comes to stand-up comedy, because they have this idea, because of my skin color and because of my actual ethnicity, that there's a certain way that I'm supposed to do comedy. Also, when it comes to my sexual orientation, there's supposed to be a certain way that I come at it. I'm supposed to be constantly victimized, and because I don't want to do that, then I don't really move to where I need to be. Now, if it were based on talent alone, anybody that knows me would tell you that I should be much further along when it comes to just talent. But because I won't play the poor Mexican, the downtrodden gay, the constantly victimized, that does hurt where it is I end up going at this point in time. But the way I see it is that's not something that I want to do just because of my own personal. So instead, I create my own lane, and I continue to create my own lane, which is what a lot of people should do. In my opinion, if you really want to get ahead and you don't want to take the traditional route or the route you're told, then create your own lane, and then you don't have to complain all the time. There's plenty of people of color that have been very successful. Oprah has been successful. She's a perfect example. She started off poor, and I believe it was Alabama. She was Mississippi. I believe it was Mississippi. And so when it comes to a situation like that, what's stopping you from getting where you want to go if Oprah could start off where she started off and not be a size 2 and be everything that's not supposed to get to where she got to? Especially considering what year she started off, what year she was born, her age. Nothing should have led to Oprah being a billionaire, but she somehow got there. But for some reason, you can't. You just refuse. So if you give up, you give up. The way I see it is if we're swimming together and you decide to stop paddling because maybe the water gets a little too rough or the shore looks a little too far away, and you decide that you're going to just stop, well, then you drown. And that's just what happens. I'm not going to drown with you, and I'm not going to let you drag me down because you decided not to do something that I am continuing to do. And I've done that even in my own personal life with a lot of things, most recently with weed. I noticed that weed was making it so I wasn't as sharp when I was recording my videos. It also took me longer to edit because I would babble more. I would use more filler words. And so I decided that even though I like smoking weed, that I should stop smoking weed so that I could do better at this. When it comes to being on the road, I could complain about people in certain states or from political parties, certain political parties. Democrats, let's be honest, Democrats want to stay home, Republicans want to get back in the world. So I could complain about Democrats keeping me from working right now because they want to keep so many things shut down and under restrictions. Or I could start working on my YouTube video and start working on my online content and figure something out in a different avenue. So if I'm willing to do that in my own life, I don't know why anybody else can't do that in theirs. And yeah, it may take a little more thinking. It may not be what your original plan was, but that's how we grow and that's how we learn. And when it comes to getting along with people, sometimes you're going to have to get along with people that you don't necessarily line up with politically, or as far as religion goes, or as far as a lot of the things, sexual orientation, a lot of the things that divide people. Sometimes if you want to get to where you want to be, then you just have to work around that and not make that the focus of your relationship with certain people. Instead, you figure out how that's going to work out for you or how the best way to work that is. I mean, you can either charm a snake and make him dance for you, or you can run up on him and have him bite you. But if you choose to run up on him and he bites you, I'm going to be like, well, that's your fault for being stupid. I'm not going to have your back and be like, oh, you're right. That snake should have just let you run up on him like that. Anyway, I hope I articulated that well, because I am tired of people being offended just for being offended. And I saw one guy on Twitter, and he was a black guy. He was verified, so I doubt he was like a bot or something fake. He probably is some sort of standing, because they do verify on Twitter. And he was saying that he also thought that there was some truth to what Jared Kushner was saying, and that if they hadn't edited it, people would have gotten a better understanding of that. Instead, everybody started calling him names and saying that he was trying to please white people and that he was tap dancing. And it's just like, Does it always have to be that? Can't anybody just have a different point of view and be a person of color and not be 100% against you or a coon? It's getting played out, and it's, to me, it really does make it seem at that point like maybe you are just lazy. Maybe if you think that the best course of action is always just to complain on Twitter instead of working on your life, then maybe you're exactly what you think Jared Kushner was alluding to, but he didn't say in so many words, but you still are going to make that the narrative. Anyway, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. I had a friend complain to me about not hitting the enough on some of these. He said in one I even just did my eyes. Chris Storin, my best friend, who agrees with almost nothing I say as far as in my commentary. So if you don't like what I say, don't go to him with it. He's definitely not on board with a lot of this. We just happen to be best friends, and he puts up with my crazy. But he definitely does not agree with everything I say, but he will let me know every once in a while. Again, that's where you have to be able to take constructive criticism, because he told me, don't do that lazy just with your eyes. Hit it or don't do it. So this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.